Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
And today we're going to be dissecting the MCU for D&D inspiration.
Jump down in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Now, if you've been following the Nerdarchy channel for a while, you're familiar with our content. We talk about stealing from other sources all the time and using, pop culture and novels and movies and comic books and
Steal from everywhere for your inspiration.
Video games. And, the Infinity War and Marvel MCU has given us such a great resource as for trying to see how to plot out arcs and do things in a game. So, looking at, the MCU leading up to Infinity War is such a great example of Macguffins inside of Macguffins and just story arcs that just have an insane magnitude.
So, you guys out there are probably well aware, we have 18 movies that lead up to Infinity War. And the entire thing is about these stones. Now, you have 18 movies, 6 stones. One of the stones isn't even mentioned. So that's 18 movies and 5 stones to really talk about. There's a lot of stuff going on. That's side quest, really.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with it. There's many movies where, there is like almost like happenstance and circumstance that kind of tie things together, but it's so loose until you get to the big picture and the end. Now, so we talk about MacGuffin, right? The Infinity Stones, the Gauntlet, these are all MacGuffins. And if you want to know what a MacGuffin is, it's basically it's a plot device, right? It is the thing that everyone's after. Cody from Taking 20 did an awesome video on MacGuffins. I feel like it's one of his best. You should go check that out for sure after you're done watching this video. So the MacGuffin is the thing that's going to be what your players are after or what the bad guy is after. And, Infinity Stones Gauntlet, they've got that in spades 4 days. Very early on, we are hinted at and we get the foreshadowing of a big bad. If you're not a comic book fan and you're not familiar with the Infinity War, then you really don't know who this Thanos guy is. But we see really early on that someone's pulling the strings, and they're getting the Dark Elves to do things, they're getting Loki to do things. It's shadowy and ambiguous, but it's there, right? So there's a takeaway from that you can add into your game. It could be even someone that you introduce your players to. They meet them. He's enigmatic. He's powerful, but maybe he's not a threat or a danger to them right now. But it's a cool thing to do to just put them in there. But it seems like random at first, but later on they're like, oh, that was the guy. Oh man, or maybe we could have stopped them then, but we missed our chance. Or like maybe they'll be thinking about it like that was some kind of foreshadowing, and what was that about?
So like Thanos makes his appearance in the very first Avengers movie as just a kind of throwaway, after scene. Like, I think it was actually in the credits is the first time you actually wind up seeing him. And he only makes a handful of appearances. And they talk about this in kind of external interviews about, well, they had no idea how far the MCU was going to go. While they had this grand vision, they didn't know whether it was going to be successful in order to get to the Infinity War. So it's like, well, we'll throw these tidbits, but it's not super important, and we don't want to layer the movies with this and have these, major open plot threads that we can't tie up later if things are going to stop before we get to Infinity War.
Now, here's where you have the advantage as the dungeon master, as the GM, right? You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about big budgets and whether the studio is going to cut your funding or anything like that. You can actually do it better than the MCU did it. You take what they did and you can start small and have like an idea what you're going to do at the end, and certain points where you think you want to put in some hints or whatever, so you can have this like villain reappear, or their lieutenants or their generals. Now, granted, like if you know us, we don't like to write a lot of stuff out ahead of time because your players might put the kibosh to it. But, you know, a couple sentences here, or when you get the ideas, jot them down. You know, you don't have to write out the full adventure 20 levels from now. But, you know, you can definitely get it started. Now, another great thing that we can take away from the MCU is how they bring together the characters. They did a great job, like, and they also connected a lot of the heroes to the big bad, right? To Thanos. You know, Drax, hates him. He blames him for the death of his family. Gamora
It's technically his daughter, his adoptive daughter.
and same with Nebula. So Nebula and Gamora are sisters, and she, you know, her role throughout the series kind of changes.
You know, Vision and Doctor Strange both have one of the stones, you know, on them. Vision literally in him, and that's a direct connection because it's like, I don't care who you are, I'm going through you because I want that stone.
Yeah, there's also some great moments as far as, you know, bringing the party together. But before we get into that, you know, if you need some adventures for your game and you don't feel like making them up, we got a place for you over on the Nerdarchy, the store, where you can grab several adventures. Hey, if you need a holiday adventure, try Father's Winter's Day, the Crinch that stole it.
We got the Maze of Mandoon, and we got Croak Hollow, all great adventures, low price for your digital adventure needs.
So with that, jumping back into the MCU, you know, one of the like really cool things we get from Guardians of the Galaxy, the very first one, is the fact that like we get basically two cliche D&D startings, right? Like the idea of starting in a tavern, or, you know,
In this case, starting in the prison.
or starting in the prison, right? They're prisoners and they have to break out. So they have this unifying goal. You know, and we also can look at, if we look at the MCU of all the movies and go, well, the end result is to get to Infinity War for your adventures. Like, you can tell all kinds of different stories, and you can do this in your game too. Like, you don't have to tell just the same kind of story over and over again. You can switch it up. You can change it. You know, we were kind of like going through and looking, you know, you got, you know, Captain America, the first Avenger, is like a war story. You know, you also have Winter Soldier. Well, it goes from being a war story to more of an espionage story.
Absolutely. You've got, you know, as we said, Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like the space tavern. They're starting in a prison, and they don't really get along, you know, but they get together to work this out. And by the end of the story, you know, yay, we're all holding hands and saving the universe.
You know, we get Age of Ultron from the Avengers as well, and that's the idea of your players have done something, and now they have to deal with the consequences of that action.
You've got Ant-Man, which is nothing more than a heist movie, and you could easily run that kind of a plot as a D&D game.
There is Doctor Strange, right? What if your players are combat machines and they just devastate everything? Well, sometimes you can't solve a problem through combat. You can't beat the solution into submission. You have to think of another way. And the ending of Doctor Strange is a huge example of that.
You've got Spider-Man: Homecoming, which is, you know, got the plot twist with the related villain. You know, these kind of things are always amazing things to do when it's like, well, I don't want to beat the bad guy because the bad guy is sort of important in my life in some way, shape, or form. You know, these enter into moral quandaries for your characters, and that makes for great storytelling.
Well, yeah, and that's what the MCU is also really good about, making relatable characters, relatable villains, right? Where it's like, wow, like you understand what this person is doing is messed up, but at the same time, you can kind of like sympathize and empathize with them and go, oh, this is a real person. You know, yes, what Killmonger was trying to do in Black Panther was totally wrong, but you understand why he was doing it because he got screwed over. And he was wrong, you know, so that was his reaction to it. So, like, you can really be like, oh, man, you know, I don't know if I agree with it, but I could see why he's doing it. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, great betrayal story. NPC, very important to one of the characters. His father, you know, and then betrays them. So, like, these are all great hooks to use in adventures, right? And then they all kind of, like, loosely tie into or directly tie into this overarching theme or plot, right? To create this huge, basically campaign, if you're talking in D&D terms or in, you know, RPG terms. And, you have the advantage of two things being a tabletop role playing game. One, like we said, you don't have to worry about whether someone's going to cut off your funding or not. And two, you can reverse engineer a lot of things. You can look back over the adventures and missions your players have gone on and be like, how can this tie into the big bad evil guy or the overarching plot? And then you can kind of reverse engineer it so it does, and then it'll like make more sense later, even though at the time it wasn't really related.
So how are you being inspired by the MCU? Why don't you jump down to the comments, let us know your great stories, your great links into the MCU. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out Nerdarchy, the store over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.